Hi guys, I'm back. This will be pretty quick, but I just really want to supplement a lot of the information that we're learning today with some action items that you can really take and implement in your own life. So what I'm going to be talking about is destigmatizing the language around suicide, so you can have some conversations with your peers, with your family members, with those that are in your network or tribe. I shared earlier a little bit about my mental health journey, that I have lived experience with clinical depression and anxiety, and I've actually had 2 suicide attempts. And it has always been really difficult for me to share my story with my family and with my friends, because there is a lot of stigma around mental health and suicide, specifically in the African American community. One story I'll share is when I first had my second suicide attempt. I called my dad in the hospital, and he said, "I can't believe you would do this to me." He said, "You're being a drama queen, and I can't believe you're doing this to me." I share that because it is really important for you to focus on self. It is really important for you to make sure you are focused on ensuring that you are mentally healthy and well before you can have conversations with family and friends. You cannot take on their stigma, their misconceptions around mental health issues and suicide, because that can be really detrimental to your mental health and well-being. So you need to make sure that you are in a positive place, a healthy place to have these conversations. It's also really important to learn the language. There is still a lot of language that we use that is not the most appropriate when it comes to talking about suicide, but also when it comes to talking about mental health issues. I constantly have to catch myself when I'm saying that something is crazy. We want to make sure we're using that in context and making sure that it's not triggering for others. I also remember, I think it's Kevin Hart's second special that he had on Netflix, and he kept saying, "Kill yourself. I would do this and I would kill myself." Those are things that are really triggering. So we want to make sure that we're really empathetic with the language that we're using, and that we're not triggering others based on their experiences. We also have to be comfortable with others not understanding. Not everyone is always going to be in a place to learn. We've probably all been in spaces like that where you want to teach a lesson and you feel like it's a teachable moment, but someone's not ready to have that conversation. We have to be okay with that. I told y'all I was diagnosed at 15 years old with clinical depression and anxiety. It took until I was 23 before my dad said, "Oh, you actually may have some mental health issues." And let me add a little asterisk there. My dad's a doctor. That's how deep stigma runs in the community, but specifically in the African American community. He still saw it as a weakness. He saw it as a blemish on his honor as my father, that I was struggling with mental health issues. But I had to focus on me and my mental health. And that goes to my next point: set boundaries. It is okay to try to have conversations with others about mental health or suicide. And if you find that the things that they are saying are not sensitive, are not positive, are not healthy, it is fine to set a boundary and say, "I don't feel comfortable with you saying that. I don't feel comfortable with you talking like that." It is perfectly fine to set some boundaries. We, especially as Black people, we struggle with setting boundaries. We historically have not been able to set boundaries, but now we have to get to a place for our survival to make sure we are setting boundaries. Lead with empathy. As I mentioned, not everyone's going to understand what you're going through, but still lead with empathy on your part. We want to model that. They may end up sharing something about their experiences. They may share stories with us. We want to make sure that we are still leading with empathy. Making sure that we're aware of stigma, and there are opportunities to break stigma down, to talk to someone and say, "Well, why do you feel that way? Why do you think that? What have you been told?" Get a better understanding of why they are implementing some sort of stigma that's keeping them from addressing mental health issues or being supportive to you. Also, personalize the conversation. We don't always have to use this very technical jargon. We can use things that are more comfortable, more relatable. We want to make sure that we're leading in the right direction with our language, but we can definitely personalize our speech. Provide consistent and non-judgmental support. If someone is not ready to have a conversation, make sure that we say, check in with me when you are ready to have that conversation. My door is open, I have a listening ear, whatever it is, but make sure that we're consistent and we're non-judgmental. I think the last session Katie shared that, each time she would have a breakup, it would feel like, it was happening all over again. And many times, especially as adults, when we hear that a young person is going through a breakup, we're like, oh, girl, you're gonna be fine. Yes, that is true, but we still have to honor the thoughts and feelings and experiences of everyone we interact with, because that's what we want. That's what we deserve. Offer supportive connection. One of my favorite things is when someone says that they're not ready to go to therapy or they're scared to go to therapy, I will offer, well, why don't I go with you? I'll drive you. I'll sit outside. Be that supportive person and help to break down kind of that stigma or fear around receiving support. Be okay with silence. A lot of us are not okay with silence, but there may be breaks in the conversation. Actually, silence is a good thing because that means that there's active listening happening. If there's not silence, that means as you're talking, the other person has already formulated their response, so they haven't heard you. So making sure we are okay with silence on your part, but also on others. Educate yourself. And when I say educate yourself, I'm not saying you need to know every symptom to every disorder, but educate yourself on some of the common warning signs and symptoms of mental health difficulties for yourself, but also for others. There's a lot of commonalities between some of the warning signs and symptoms of mental health issues and difficulties. Again, you don't have to know, okay, this goes with bipolar disorder and this goes with depression, but do know some of the common warning signs and symptoms of mental health issues. So when we're having these conversations, we have some context to what we're actually talking about. And lastly, before I leave you, again, make sure you are honoring your thoughts, your feelings, and your experiences. It's very important to make sure that you create space for you to go through the feelings. A lot of us want to fight jealousy or anger or frustration, and we want to push it down. It's going to come right back up somewhere. Those are human emotions and human feelings, especially if you're going through trauma, stress, or anxiety. So make sure we are honoring our thoughts, our feelings, and experiences, and those of others. Thanks, guys.